sir.
Hi,
Thanks for
hi.
joining. So,
Welcome.
Dr.
Thank
Sharma
you.
is hi, sir. So, Dr. Sharma is a former CGM of RBI, and he's a PhD holder in English, and he is a visiting faculty at a lot of management B schools, including IIM Ahmedabad, Lucknow, ISB, and he is the English faculty at iExamB. He takes classes for descriptive English, and a lot of engagement in those classes happens. So very interesting essay topics he picks up for discussions in the classes. So sir, maybe you can guide how students can approach for the English paper.
Right. Thank you, Praji. Thank you for that nice introduction also. Well, I'm surprised that the kind of names I'm seeing here, Jagriti, Arushi, Simran, I've never seen them in the class. In the English class for the DEPR, when we have English, nobody has come to the class. There's not a single familiar name that I can see here. So I would rather the students speak and ask questions. That would be a better idea. So that I know what their doubts are and how we can clear them rather than me doing the talking. Because they would be knowing that, we have essay writing, we have RC, we have Pressy, letter writing, essay, you will have 4 options, 35 marks, and it could be anything between 500 words, Similarly, for Pressy, which is for 25 marks, now, they say 150 to 170 words, but I guess you all would be knowing that Pressy has, it's understood, it goes without saying that it is 1/3 the length. So in case they have not mentioned the time, the word limit out there, you guys have to just presume that it's 1/3. So you are lucky if the examiner, if the paper setter has given you the number of words to use. But in case he has not given the number of words, then you must keep that in mind. It's 1/3 the length. So normally I find in my classes that most people think it's 120 words. Now, 120 words is because maybe the passage that they have, they got last year was having X number of words, or 1/3 was 120. So I would begin, and then of course we have a letter writing where you again would have 3 options. 20 marks for about 150 words, which is not much, letter writing, and RC 5 questions for 20 marks each. Sometimes you may find that the passage that you have for Pressy is also the passage for RC. So that makes it much easier. Letter writing, somebody was asking me how many words about, they'll mention the word limit around 150 words or so. But please remember that the letter normally, they could be bank related, in the banking sector related. You are a manager of a branch, and there is a certain scheme which has to be implemented. You must let the head office know the developments in your area. So when you write the letter, you have to factor in that you're not writing, and you have to distinguish between a formal letter and an informal letter. So let's go by the questions that you guys are asking in the chat. I would rather you unmute yourselves and ask. That would be the best, because it also helps me understand where you're coming from. In paper 2, all 4 questions carry equal marks, or essay carries more marks. Well, the essay is for 35 marks, as I told you. And the others, 25 marks, 20 marks. So they are not having the same marks. Try to answer the question which has the maximum marks first. That is the essay, which means why should you leave the essay towards the end? In case you are not able to complete, you would be losing more marks, because the essay carries 35 marks. So in proportion to the marks, you must also distribute your time. The question which has more marks, devote more time to it. The question which has less marks, give less marks. Do we need to give a heading for the Pressy writing? Jagriti is asking. Jagriti, this is, there are 2 I would say there are two hard constraints in pressure writing. One is the word limit. So it is like a Lakshman Rekha. You shall not cross that. You shall not even go prior to that. So if I say 150 words, I mean 150. I'm going to cut marks if you write more or less. In case they say about 150, which means plus minus 5 words you can use. But my advice is learn the discipline, practice the discipline, and stick to the word limit. 170 means 170, not a word more, not a word less. Heading, that's the second hard constraint for which marks are cut. When I say hard constraint, what I'm trying to say is for the word limit and for the title, they will cut marks in case you do not give a title. They may or may not ask you. Sometimes if the paper setter is very liberal, he will say, give a suitable heading to it, a title to it. If the paper setter is a little nutcrack like me, he will simply say, write a précis of the following passage. I'm not giving you the word limit. I'm not mentioning the title part. But I expect you to know that the length should be 1/3, and you have to invariably give a title to the topic. Right, Jagriti? Are we clear on that? So next question is coming from Apurva. No, this is econometrics. Okay. I can't see any more questions. There they are. Okay. Yeah. What type of technical practical knowledge might we need for letter, and is there anything we need to keep in mind with respect to the formatting of the letter? Yes. So, depending on the kind of letter you're getting. So if you are a banker, supposing, what we call as reader orientation, you must keep in mind, firstly, who is my reader? Who am I writing to? Am I writing a letter to the editor? Or am I writing a letter to my head office? Or am I writing a letter to a Gram Panchayat? Or am I writing a letter to the central bank? Or whatever. So keep in mind who is your reader. Then comes the technical part. What does the letter say? Is it about a particular scheme? If the letter is about a particular scheme, its implementation, it is understood that without knowing the background of the scheme, you will not be able to write a good letter. So if you know the scheme, well and good, you write it. If you're not familiar with it, I would suggest you look for a better, easier option. So what I say in both letter writing and also in essay writing, there is something called the aha experience. You know the aha experience? When you look at something and say, I have arrived, So when you look at the topics, for example, and you find suddenly out of the 4 topics, you suddenly feel, that's what I know about. So try to get that feeling within you and choose that topic. Somebody asked me a question recently in the class that what happens if I do not know a single topic? What do I do? Well, in such cases, it's the best of the worst. So if there are 4 topics and all 4 topics you are not familiar with, certainly look for the aha that of the lot that is given there, which is the best I can write about. And since you have not been attending my classes, so I normally give tricks and tips, the techniques that we must resort to. And since all of you are from economics background and you may be having some idea about what is SWOT analysis and what is PEST. So normally we start with brainstorming. When you get a topic, practical, even in the letter writing, technical topic, keep in mind, brainstorm. For anything that you start writing, don't pick up a pen and start writing. I would suggest rather, Give yourself, if you have allotted 20 minutes for the topic that you wish to write on the question answer, 5 minutes should be kept aside for thinking, brainstorming. Write down the important points that come to you. So that is what we say. We normally brainstorm by using what I would say is the so this is the formula that you keep in mind, the Moscow method, in which the M, see the capital letters M, S, C, and W. So here, M stands for must, and S stands for should, and C stands for could, and W stands for would. So when you jot down your points, give yourself that spare time to think of the topic, close your mind, eyes, and think about the words, the single words, So for example, if you're talking about, there's a topic on climate change, then the first thing that comes to you is COT, emission of CO2 gases. So write CO2 gases, or greenhouse effect, or the Paris Agreement, or the melting of glaciers, or the pollution all around, the suffocating oceans, marine life, food chain. As these words come to your mind, just keep jotting them down. And once you've jotted down about 15, 20 words, which should take you about 2 minutes, then you choose of the lot that you've written, which is most significant ones, which are M's. So just put an M against it so you know this is a point I must use. Similarly, if you think you don't have enough, so if you're able to gather enough must, then you can ignore the rest of it. However, in case you feel that you don't have enough must with you, then you go for what are the topics that you think you should be adding. So from there, look for the S's and put an S against those points which follow must, of secondary importance. And third importance down the ladder is coulds. If you think, so these points are not sufficient, then only you could say, I could use this point. You need not, it is not your first priority, but because it's not your second priority, but because you are running short of ideas, you are using C. So essentially, it is the most important points that you must jot down and use them. So brainstorming, therefore, I'm saying, is very important. This is one technique. The other is structuring your essay. Please remember, when you want to structure your essay, you can do a SWOT analysis of the topic. That's the easiest way. You would have the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So you could use these and divide it, structure it use all the into 4 quadrants and structure your essay. Now, formatting of the letter, yes, you must format the letter in the sense it should be justified and use the left side. Address to the person who you're writing to, who is writing from. Date is very essential. Salutation is very important. Subject matter is very important. So after to and from, write the subject matter so that the person who gets the letter knows that he is. I'm just stop sharing this. Okay. So and do not mention your names in the letter anywhere. It's XYZ, ABC, XYZ, whatever you want to use, because you would be penalized if you were to use your name. It's kind of giving away who the letter writer is. Then comes your subject matter, which should be in bold, if you can bold it, and underline it. Subject matter should be very clear so that the reader orientation he knows what you're going to be talking about, and therefore he should be willing to read the letter further. The topic is of interest and concern to him. Dear sir, dear ma'am, there is no barrier on earth which stops you from using dear ma'am. Because I've noticed many people have this reservation of saying dear ma'am. This is a formal way of writing a letter. So you can write dear sir, dear ma'am. And or if you are so cagey, you can write sir or ma'am. Then you write your 2 paras of the letter. You introduce yourself. I'm so and so. If it is a letter to the editor, then you can let them know your concern. And if you're writing to the head office, then you come to the point with reference to, with it. So you can give a reference, place your letter in a context. You can imagine that the head office has written a letter to you asking for your views. So then you can begin, please refer to your letter number XYZ, dated so and so, seeking our views on the subject of recent floods in the district, for example, if you're talking about that. And we have taken the following measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can list them down there. And then when you end, yours faithfully. Dear sir will end with yours faithfully. If it is by name to a person, then you can say yours sincerely. So that much for the letter writing. And what kind of topics? Yeah, topics, Prachi ma'am was just talking to you about the economic survey. She was talking about the monetary policy that you should be reading. Go through it. Speeches of, I would add to that, speeches of DGs and EDs and governors on the topic related to these speeches. They show you the thinking of the central bank. What is the bank thinking? In particular, if you read the speeches of Dr. Patra, Michael Patra, what is he talking about? Whatever he talks in public forum, or he goes to colleges and talks about it, it is the current thinking of the bank. Get your ideas from there. Fresh ideas, not stereotypes that people pick up from the books. The people who don't join our exam B. So they will not only give you the present thinking, but they will also show you the way forward. So in an essay which is talking about your views or the status of a particular project or the state of the country, whether it's the economy, whether it's inflation, whether it's poverty, you should always end with the way forward. That's one way of ending. Way forward means, so how do we take it from there? Having explained what I've said, how do I take it from there? Second point is, if you can't have a way forward, then conclude by tying up what you have been talking about in your thesis argument, which is your para 2 and 3. So topics would normally be coming from, current economic issues. That's one area you should be, and that's not a big deal, because if you're reading the economic survey, if you've read the annual report, if you've read the monetary policy, you've been reading newspapers, there is no reason why you would not be able to write an essay on any of the current topics of concern vis-a-vis as far as banking is concerned. And there are invariably topics from there, banking sector. So that's your advantage. The other could be an abstract topic, something like, if you see the mock test, for example, we've prepared the mock test Prachi ma'am was talking about. You would know that there is a topic like, leisure is an industry by itself. Now, this is a topic which is a little, not a very easy topic, I would say, because, you have to really, you may have not have thought about it. You may have studied about economic topics. You may have studied about social issues. But a topic like this, that you can't sew hands with a closed fist, if that is the topic I give you. Or war is not an answer, but nor is peace. You see, a debatable question I've given you there. So these kind of things, so you have to be careful in what way you choose your topic and the way you get the right points to write about. So keep in mind that normally, the current economic issues and current topics of concern to us meaning India and the world. So what is concerning the world these days? We have been ravaged by wars, for example. You had Ukraine and Russian war, which has been so disturbing. And then, the crisis that you've seen, recent crisis in Bangladesh, that's the Israel wars. So that is one hot topic. I'm not saying this is the topic that is going to come, but what I'm trying to say is these are the things you should be familiar with, the current economic, social issues.
So to
And
add,
yes, Pratima.
so I was saying just to add that, even the reasons that have led to these wars or, unrest, say, for example, Bangladesh, it could be, is the quota system right? An essay
Yes.
or
So it could
thinking
be,
on that.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. What you're saying is right, because you have to see the context. If you are familiar with the war, why it happened, you would be able to write any part of that essay. It is not the factual data that they're looking for. Don't overload your data with your essay with data, statistics. You think this is DEPR and DEPR deals only with surveys, statistics, reports. No. When you write your essay, use data like salt and pepper in your food.